Morning, welcome to the recording for the last day of Space Camp Week, day 4, it's Thursday, and we are going to do Caring for the Earth watercolor. So this is the recording on Zoom for that. We are going to get started with supplies, and I'm going to switch my camera view so I can show you the supplies a little better. Oh, there we go. Let's get some light here. Here's the painting. Okay, let's start with, well, I can start with the paper. I'm going to use watercolor paper. Watercolor paper is kind of thick. It has a little bit of a bumpy texture. It just soaks in the water and holds it in better than, say, drawing paper or computer paper. So watercolor paper is kind of a must if we are doing a true watercolor painting. Now I have two different sizes of papers here. I've got the original's a little smaller. This one's a little bigger. So I'll just do it a little bit bigger. Another thing you could do, lots of people like to have a white border around their painting. So in this case, I don't have a white border. I just went right to the edge with paint. So for this version, I will take a little bit of masking tape, painter's tape, even washi tape would work. And I'm going to put some around the edge so I get a nice white border, but that is an optional step, an optional supply to do masking tape around the edge. So that's what I'm going to do myself. If you feel like doing that, grab some tape. Let's get this out of the way. Brushes, I've got two brushes today, kind of a bigger, thicker one. There it is. It's a size 10, if you're curious about the number. This will be for like my background, big areas that I need to slosh around a lot of paint and water, a bigger brush. And then this one is a smaller, thinner brush. It's a number 6, if you're curious about the number. And I'll use that for, you know, the continents, the galaxy, smaller stuff where I can dab smaller amounts of paint. So just like, even if you had just one paintbrush today, that would be okay. That'd be okay to do just the whole thing with one paintbrush. You could definitely do that. These are watercolor brushes. You can use any kind of brush. Dollar store brushes, acrylic brushes, flat brushes, round brushes, anything you have at home. Pardon me. I've got a little piece of paper towel and my cup or jar of water to rinse out your brushes. Let's talk paint. This is what my paint set looks like. I can show you what brand that is. Mei Liang is the brand I use. Just a nice student set. It's not professional watercolors in any way. You're going to grab the paint from this area, mix it with more water in this area, and then go to your painting. If you don't have like a lid where you can do extra mixing in, you can grab a small plate, Tupperware lid, something where you could do some extra mixing. So whether you want to mix two colors together or just adding more water to a color, this is the area that I'll do that in. So this is my set. If you have a set with less colors, that's okay. We're just using kind of like basic colors here. Blue, green, purple, black, maybe a little pink, maybe a little yellow. But you can always mix two colors together. So say I'm using kind of a reddish purple and you don't have that like in here, just mix red plus purple together. Ta-da, you have any color you can imagine by mixing two colors together. That's what I'm going to use. Pencil and an eraser. Pencil and eraser, any pencil, any eraser. I like to use a mechanical pencil, and I've got this squashy, kneadable eraser, but a white eraser would work, pink eraser would work. any kind of pencil. If you have a choice of pencils, you have a whole set of pencils, use a lighter pencil. So an H is lighter than any B pencils. So 2H, 4H, nice and light and thin lead. 2B, 4B, it goes all the way like 8B, very high numbers of B. Those are all dark, thick leads. We're not going to use those. We're going to use light, thin leads to make light lines. Pencil and eraser. An optional supply. So if you look real closely at like the galaxy part of the arms and hands, there's these little weird patches that kind of look like little bursts or little frosty bits. So an optional supply to make that kind of effect is salt, just regular salt from a salt shaker, like fine little grains of salt will help us get these little patchy blotches. But if you don't like that look, you don't have to add the salt. You can leave it out and just have kind of a swirly bunch of colors for your galaxy with some white stars. So salt is like an optional thing. Speaking of white stars, my dots of white stars, they don't come from white watercolor because white watercolor is see-through. So these white dots I made using just dollar store white acrylic paint, just some basic stuff. If you don't have any white acrylic paint, you could use whiteout pen, white ink. What else is opaque and white? And you could always add these later if you want to just grab some white paint the next trip to the dollar store and add these dots later. You can definitely do that. I think that's all the supplies I have. Yeah, looks like it. Move some stuff out of the way. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat. If you feel like asking a question verbally with your voice, you can just pop on your microphone. And just remember, we are recording this. Okay, so I'm just going to do the extra step of putting some tape around the edge of my paper, just so I have a nice white border. So if you'd like to also have a white border, grab a little bit of masking tape, painter's tape, washi tape, and just put it kind of gently around the edges. I mean, you should have white acrylic paint at your house because a lot of you had joined me yesterday for the galaxy. We did the whole like solar system yesterday, and we definitely used white then. There we go. Okay, so that's just a small extra step if you want to have a nice white border around. And I just lightly press it down so it doesn't stick too much. Oh, I guess one thing that I didn't mention, the globe, the Earth, is a circle. If you have something around you that is circular that you can trace, that's around that size. So think about, maybe you have tape nearby. That could be the perfect Earth shape. So something that's, going to fit in your hands. Maybe I am going to use my own hands to help me draw this. So if you're a kid, you might have a slightly smaller circle that fits in your hands like this to trace. We're just going to trace it. I could even trace like the inside circle if I wanted a slightly smaller Earth. What else? I've got this as a circle. I've got my coffee mug. I could trace that, I guess. Anything nearby that's a circle. Your cup, a candle, a circular object so we can trace our Earth. we are going to draw first. Drawing first, get your pencil and your eraser. Let's look at this. Two hands holding the earth. I am literally going to trace my hands to help me draw this hand shape. It just makes sense. We have hands. Why not use those as a reference? So yeah, you can have them overlapping a little bit, your hands. You can have it more spread out or side to side like this. However you want to trace your hands. Now we will have to trace one at a time because you need a hand to trace, or you can get a friend, I guess, to help you. So think about how you want your hands to be. High, low. I kind of like this. I like it centered. So the camera angle makes it look like it's not center, but to me, I'm in the center. So I'm going to remove one of my hands. I've got one hand on the page. Taking my pencil. Just like when you lie down on the sidewalk and someone traces your outline on the sidewalk for fun, we're doing kind of that. So we're going to trace our hands lightly, and we can always adjust any pencil lines we make after. So I'm going to lightly trace just like straight down. I'm just holding my pencil straight up and down. I'll go to the outside of my pinky there, but I won't do kind of this middly area, but I will do the rest of my wrist. I mean, you could do the whole hand, but I know that there's going to be a circle here. Maybe like to there. Okay. It's hard to see. It's a light pencil. I'll just lightly kind of darken it a little for you to see. And it doesn't have to be perfect. If it's a little bit wibbly wobbly, just adjust it with your eraser and your pencil. But definitely draw as light as you can at home. I'm making mine a little darker so you can kind of see it. Okay, there's one hand. One of my hands. If you have a different position for your thumb, that's fine. Like your thumb could be more out or in. And then this is where it gets a little trickier. We're going to have to switch hands. So you probably used your dominant hand to do the first tracing. Now you're going to have to switch to your non-dominant hand to do the other tracing. That's a tough one. That's going to be a little tougher.
I don't know how to hold a pencil with my left hand.
Yeah, it's so weird.
It's like, how do you hold it?
I just kind of pinch it.
Okay.
I kind of do this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not doing the normal hold. I'm just kind of doing this because all I have to do is straight up and down.
Okay.
Yeah, so grab it like a claw, like a crab claw.
Okay, thanks.
Straight up and down. Yeah, it's a good thing we're just tracing and not drawing like a detailed painting drawing with our non-dominant hand. Okay, so this is kind of a good spot. I mean, you could line up your hands again like this and then remove this one to get the right placement. Okay, just go slow and steady. Remember, we have erasers to adjust anything. If this hand looks, slightly bigger or slightly different position than the other one, that's okay. That's fine. I am going to draw all my fingers and just see how they overlap, but I can always erase some of those. Okay. It looks a little funny right now. Let me just darken some of these. Like what was going on here? A big callus on my hand, maybe? Who knows? my thumb, my wrist. Yeah, you can tell when things don't look quite right, but you can adjust. You don't have to exactly follow that crazy line. Yeah, it didn't look right when I came in like that. So I just fixed it. Then we have erasers. And then you have to decide, is your left hand on top of your right? Is your right on top of your left? Finger wise here, I think I'm going to go with, I'm going to take out this. So my left is over my right in my case. Let me fix this up a little. Palms, you can like kind of curve your palms a little bit. Straighten out your wrists if they got a little bit wiggly. And remember, this is going to be the earth. So let's see. Is this a good size? I think that's pretty good size. Let's see this one. Try different circle sizes to see what works best for you. It doesn't have to be to the same scale as mine. That one's a pretty good circle too. Which one will I use? I think I'm gonna go with this one. Nice big earth. Give that a light trace. That's pretty good. Anything inside that circle can be erased because we're going to add a drawing of continents. And we will add like a little bit more finger detail. Peyton says they're using a tape roll. Yep, me too. Me too. Okay, so I'll give you a little bit more time if you're still kind of fine tuning some of your outlines, but we will add a tiny bit more detail with our drawing. Yeah, I love all these colors that I have in the galaxy, and you can switch up these colors. I've got like warm blues and purples and kind of like a magenta, but you can switch up those colors to be greens, cool blues, swirled with black, any colors. And the background too, it doesn't have to be blue. This background could be hot pink. It doesn't necessarily like represent sky or anything, this background. It could be whatever you want it to be. All right, let's add little like hints of our fingers and our thumb, because I did, so you can kind of see I've left white gaps. Interesting, because usually things are outlined in black. In my case, I purposefully left white gaps as sort of my outline. So you can kind of see individual fingers. You can kind of tell this is a thumb kind of thing. So looking at the first hand we did, the fingers, you can kind of lay your hand on it to remind yourself the fingers go this way. And you can see here's a finger, here's a finger. So you can just kind of draw a line coming back this way. And it goes pretty deep. It's going to go all the way down to here, let's say. Yeah, pretty much all the way to there for that index finger. And then we've got the middle finger. Also going back at that angle. A line going back this way. A little pinky here, separate those two. Yeah, use your own hand to reference what direction those lines go. You have the ultimate reference. We have hands. And then the thumb, my thumb is kind of laying against the side here. So there's the little tip of it. Thumb, and then I might even do kind of like a bulgy shape. Like that, nice curving. That's this like meaty part, this meaty chunk of your thumb. This part is this line. And we don't need to draw like thumbnail or anything. I guess if you really want to do a thumbnail, you can, but I'm not going to. This meaty part and this part, that's my thumb. Yeah, and then you can kind of look at your hand, but then
My thumbs are really weird because they curve out.
Oh yeah, they really do, huh?
Yeah, so that's what my that's how I drew mine. Like,
Yeah, definitely. And people will tell like this is Peyton holding up the earth.
yeah.
Yeah, some people have like a clubbed thumb where their thumb is like short and looks like a toe. Those are very interesting. Okay, so I'm doing this side. So I'm going to kind of look at my hand, but then I'm going to draw with my good hand. So my finger's going to come back this way. And maybe a little hint, not a lot of room here, maybe a little bit of a hint of a finger divide there. But most of it's hidden by the other fingers. So I think that's all I'm going to do on these fingers. And then the thumb, kind of similar. I had it squished against my palm. This, that's the first knuckle. That. And then I'll do another one of those big bulgy fleshy parts with a nice big curve. Sort of kind of the same as this curve. Look at this curve here. Try to make it sort of the same on that side. Doesn't have to be perfect. And it kind of comes, the end of it comes like to the middle of your wrist. If this is your wrist, this is kind of halfway, right? Because it does come kind of right here, this bulgy part. This line here. Tidy that up a little. It's starting to look more like two hands. So I've drawn mine pretty dark. Mine's pretty dark. So I'm going to lightly, just lightly erase some of my dark lines so that they're not as visible in my final painting. If you've already drawn, you're drawing very, very light to begin with, then you don't need to lightly erase. You're probably already set. We're going to add our continents on our globe. And mine are not geographically accurate, just rough shapes. I love these squishable erasers because there's no little bits that come off of it like pink erasers and white erasers, those little bits that you always have left over and you got to blow them off. These squashy kneadable erasers don't have that. What I love. Okay, lightly erased. Yeah, and if your fingers look like sausages, that's because your fingers are sausages. That's what they look like. Mine look like hot dogs. Okay, so my globe, and you don't have to have yours in this position. Mine's kind of focused on the Atlantic Ocean with some North America here. We've got some Greenland, a little bit of Europe, a little bit of, that's the like tip of Africa. If you want, you know, North America to be kind of more in the center, you can do that. Maybe just Google, you know, North America globe or something like that. And then you could look at that as you're drawing it. If you, maybe you're in Australia and you want, you know, Australia here, Asia into Europe, any position of the continents you want to do, or just make it up. You can make up your own countries. I loved doing that as a kid, making up, you know, rivers and mountains and wherever I wanted the cities to be in my own country. I think it was an assignment we did in class. So much fun. All right, so I'll keep this here. So if you want to look at these loose blobs and kind of do it on yours, or get onto Google, Google like the area of the globe you want to do, and copy that. And it doesn't have to be accurate. Mine is not accurate at all. This is a little bit of Newfoundland here. This is Labrador. Going into, that's like the St. Lawrence River mouth. Florida. Oh, ran out of room for like anything else. So I'll just leave it at that. What do we got up here? Maybe this is like Baffin Island. There's lots of islands up here. But this is definitely Greenland. Iceland. Get a little hint of Europe over here. And even as I'm painting this, and maybe I go outside my lines a little bit, that's okay. I just added a new peninsula onto a country. Okay, this way. Maybe that's like Spain or Portugal, somewhere in there. And then something like that. It's close to that, but a little different. But again, any continents you want to invent, absolutely. Have some hidden shapes in your continents, hidden images, hidden names in your continents. I'll give you a couple minutes to draw whatever land masses you've decided to draw. And that's really all we need to do for the drawing. You won't need to draw anything else unless you want to add things around here. Because I'm just going to do kind of like a swirly blue blotchy background. If you wanted to add, you know, it'd be cute, other planets, Mars, Saturn, and then have maybe a dark blue background, could look very cool. Maybe like to go with the like Mother Earth kind of theme, maybe some vines in the background. You could definitely add anything you want to this painting. Yeah, I'm thinking vines, around as a border would be cute. What else would be cute? Maybe like a sun and a moon kind of theme. Anything at all. And then maybe in the future, if you're doing this again, you could mix up the composition, do different colors, you could be holding, instead of holding the earth, could be holding like a half of a moon, half of a sun icon. All right, I'm going to, again.
That would look so neat.
Yeah, wouldn't it? Yeah, so take the skills that you've learned drawing this and apply it to other compositions. I'm going to lightly erase this again, just so a lot of pencil marks don't show up in my final painting, but I can still definitely see. You can, yeah, the camera still kind of sees where all these lines are. Okay, that's enough of drawing. I mean, we've spent half an hour just drawing. Let's get to the actual painting. Let's do it. So I showed you the two brushes I had. It's up to you to decide what brush to use and when. If you're working on a tiny little island, little peninsula, definitely be using a smaller brush. But if you're working on, you say these fingers, and a smaller brush is working better for you, but I'm using a medium brush, just switch it up. Use whatever brush is best for the area you're working in. Don't let me stop you from picking a different brush. Here's my paint. Where can we get kind of all of them together? That's kind of close. Maybe I can go. Oh yeah, that's not bad if the camera stays. How's that? I think that's pretty good. Okay, I'm going to start with, let's start with the earth. I want to do, let's say, the water first, then let it dry before we do any of the green continents so that the blue and green don't bleed. We don't want any bleeds. So you'll see me kind of jumping around to different areas. So we don't have bleeds. Blue. So I'm going to use, I have so many blues on this. I have 7 different blues. Sometimes it's hard to decide what blue is best. So I always have a swatch chart. So you can tell like all these blues here.
I have 2 different watercolor palettes.
Nice. Lots of choices. I love that. Okay, like, don't tell my husband, but I have like 6 different sets of watercolor. There's always a need for more. So you can look at a color swatch sheet like this to tell what these look like once dry, because you know this and this look very similar in the palette, but on here they're different. So I'm going to use maybe Prussian blue today. I'm feeling Prussian, but if you want to use cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, sky blue, whatever blue for your ocean, use that. And to get all these blotchy effects, after we put our paint, we're going to blob in some water. It's a fun thing to do, blobbing in some water. I'm thinking Prussian blue myself, kind of a darker blue. But yeah, see, I add water to it. So here's my Prussian blue. Bring it over here, get some more water, mix it together, because we don't want like chunkies, little chunks of blue that are unmixed getting onto our paper. Let's see, and you could test it out, throw some on there. That looks pretty good. I like that color. So mine's pretty watery. You can even kind of see the paper through the paint. That's okay. It doesn't have to be super thick and dark. Watery is good. This is watercolor. And you guys did do a little bit of watercolor earlier this week, Tuesday with Vera. So I'm sure there were times when you were using watery watercolors versus thicker watercolors. And I'm just going, you know, as carefully as I can around all these shapes, but if it goes a little bit wild, a little bit over the line, that's okay. Lots of water. We want it to kind of stay a little bit wet as we're doing like the whole area. But if some of it starts to dry, that's okay. We're going to add even more dribbles of water in it. For that kind of that bloom effect. We call them cauliflowers because it kind of reminds me of like the shapes of cauliflowers. The vegetable, you know what I mean. Yeah, okay, I went a little bit outside my line. That's okay. We're gonna get some galaxy that's gonna cover that up. Not a problem. Yeah, if you want to switch to your tiny brush for these teeny little inlets and bays of your continents, any brush. Just because I'm sticking with my medium doesn't mean you have to. But my medium has a bit of a pointy tip, so that's good for going into teeny little harbors and bays here. Okay, so my ocean, my Atlantic Ocean is filled. Do not worry if you haven't filled all yours in, but you have to immediately add little drips of water. So I've cleaned out my brush and then I clean it out, but then I kind of wipe it on the side so it's not like dripping wet. And then I just kind of lightly dabble water into the wet paint. So that's why you have to do this immediately while this is all still wet. You can go get some more water, drip it wherever, just dab, splotch. And like the paint will naturally puddle in some areas, not in other areas. Like I'm seeing right here, it's kind of puddling a little darker over here, a little darker. That's okay. That's okay to have different patches. This one's patchy, like there's a dark patch here, there. And all the extra water we added is going to do some other kind of cool swirly effects. As it dries, you'll see those kind of showing more. Yeah, it's already looking kind of cool. Yeah, it's kind of swirly too. You can kind of pick it up and it like kind of moves. You can kind of tilt it, maybe get some darker bits somewhere else if you want to tilt it a teeny tiny bit, but we don't want it running like off uncontrolled. So we need to let this dry before we do the green. Otherwise, we'll just have like a blue and green bleeding festival, which wasn't so bad yesterday when we were doing the acrylic earth, because acrylics sort of stay in place. Excellent. I'll give you another minute filling in the blue and then dabbing a little water, just plain water, dab it around a little bit, as little or as much as you want. And we'll start on our on our galaxy hands, arms. Let's have a little closer look here. So I've got kind of a warm blue, bluey purple. I have purple. I have like a magenta kind of color. I definitely have black. Black is important. And then, you know, sometimes they'll mix together and make new colors, like a bluish, blackish color. But yeah, anything that you want in your galaxy sky. It could be just mostly black with a little blue in it. It could be, there could be greens and yellows. There could be different patches, like a green and yellow patch on black here, blue and purple patch over here, anything you can imagine for your galaxy, because there's, you know, different nebulas and I don't know, things in the galaxy that I can't explain. All different gases, different colors. So I think I will start kind of on one of the wrists here. I'll probably start going up the wrist here, up and around and back down, because we kind of have to keep it kind of wet as we go. So yeah, wet, we'll do like maybe this much wet, sprinkle with some salt, do this much more wet, sprinkle with some salt, and just kind of work in little chunks as we go around. Okay. I'm thinking I'm going to start with something lighter, like a pink. If you wanted to have some yellow, start with that, but lighter, and then we'll add the darker colors after the lighter colors. So I'm thinking like pinky purple, medium brush or small brush, up to you. I've got some pink here. Where will I put my pink? Pink, lots of water. All right, so I'm literally just gonna dab around some pink wherever I want. So I'll put some there, blob some pink there. That's pretty good. Grab a second color, maybe this lovely purple. Some lovely purple, dab that. If they touch, they're gonna bleed together, and that's good. We want things blending, bleeding, mixing.
Did you add water before you added all the colors?
Nope, we're just on a dry piece of paper.
Okay, because I thought you did water before. Thanks.
Nope, I would have told you, and you would have probably seen how shiny it was, because you can kind of see when things are wet because they're shiny. But I definitely would have told you if I had done a step like that. I'm just dabbing some purple, dabbing some pink. I'll get another color. Let's go, I'm gonna go blue. Again, I have so many blues. I think I'll go with ultramarine for me. Let's grab a little of that. So we want colors to, you know, touch, accidentally bleed into each other. I'm not going to go too much higher than this because I want to work on smaller sections at a time, so it doesn't kind of get away from me and start drying before I'm ready for it to start drying. Pull up some blue around, even just water. So I've got pink, I've got purple, I've got blue. Water on my brush, I can dab some of that around. That will give me a cool effect. You can kind of fill in some empty spaces with water, and colors will flow into those watery spaces. But we don't have any black yet. I haven't added any black just yet. Pink, purple, blue, water. I might go back into some pink. Add a little more pink. Enhance the pink you already have, make new pink areas. whatever you feel like. It's okay if there's a couple little white gaps too. Sometimes I'll have little teeny tiny white gaps. Those are okay. But if you feel like you want to fill in every tiny little white gap, just have like a little water on your brush or an empty brush and just kind of move some paint into that area. And my edges aren't tidy. They're a little bit messy. You just kind of tidy them up. I'm not even adding more paint. I'm just using like an empty brush. Just straightening up my edges a teeny tiny bit. Okay, so I've got all kinds of colors. I will add some black too. Get my black going with some water here. And just use your black sparingly. Your black can easily overpower the other colors. So just dab little bits of black here and there. That's all the black I'm going to do because I don't want it to overpower it too much. Things will move and spread even as it dries. That's okay. You're going to get some cool shapes. Now here's where I would add my little salt. If you want to have a little bit of salt as kind of like just kind of a bursty, kind of like stardust effect. And it doesn't work every time. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it really works. I like to just kind of take my sweaty finger, dab it in a little salt on my sweaty fingertip, and then I just kind of rub it, let it sprinkle, not too much. Some of the salt grains might go like over here, that's okay. All right, I'll hold this closer so you can kind of see it's not a ton. It's not a ton of salt. And that's what we need to do. And keep doing it piece by piece, all around our arm, hand. Okay, I'm going to do the same steps. I can do the exact same colors, pardon me, or mix it up, do different colors. So here's some pink, blobs, some pink. Maybe this time around, I'm going to use a different shade of purple. Why not? This is a slightly different shade of purple. I'm going to probably do this part of the hand and then my thumb. I'll leave it at that. So I'll stay within the pencil line of my thumb. Stay on the inside of the thumb. What color next? Some lovely blue. Yeah, it doesn't have to be the same blue, but I'll do the same blue. If you're close to any wet parts of your earth, just don't let the two colors touch. Leave a little white gap so that a wet part of the hand doesn't touch a wet part of your earth. blue. Back to a little pink. Yep, I'm just staying just on my thumb for now. Dab, dab, dab. Oh, here's a little boo-boo I made, a drip. A drip has escaped. If you have a drip in a place you don't want a drip, get a tissue or your paper towel and just soak it up. Soak it up as soon as you see it. Let's say you have a drip somewhere you don't want one and it's already dried because you're so distracted and it's already dried. You would just get a clean brush with clean water. You would rub the offending stain, rub it, then get your clean tissue and blot it, and it will lighten it. It might not always get rid of it completely, but it'll definitely help. Okay, there's all my colors. I'm going to add a little black. I'm going to add a little salt as well. A little black here and there. Tidy up your edges a tiny bit, a little straighter around the edges. There, so I've got my colors. I've got little bits of black here and there. And I'm going to do my salt again. So just a little. Get a little on my fingertip.
Will it matter if you accidentally pour a ton of salt on one spot because your shaker's lid fell off?
Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah, try to get as much of that up as you can.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely recommend using your fingers instead of like shaking like this, because then you don't have much control of how much comes out.
Okay, I'll try that next time.
Okay. Yeah, so just get as much of that off as you can. Let it dry. And then flake off the extra salt. And then you could even repaint that little area. If it got a little weird with all the extra salt, you can always repaint that area to make it like match the other stuff. Okay, so things are already happening down here. Things are happening down here. Little frosty bits, that's the salt doing some weird stuff, good stuff. And that'll start to happen over here where I've got a little bit of salt. That looks kind of cool. Yeah, I like having, distinctive, like the thumb is distinct from this finger because I painted this and then I let it dry before I went onto this area. So I think that's a good idea. We should do this wrist and this palm and thumb as this is drying. So we have a distinct line between thumb and the rest of the fingers. It'll look more composed, like more intentional. And that's a very good idea. Yeah, this is gonna dry in funky shapes. There's like sometimes when there's like a really big puddle and maybe you don't want a really big puddle. I see this one's a huge puddle. You can take a teeny bit of a little corner of a tissue or paper towel and just lightly soak it up a tiny bit. See, it goes right into the tissue, just lightly not all of it, but just like a little some of it. So that's a little less of a deep puddle, like maybe down here. A little dry piece. Yeah, just to help it dry a little even, a little more even. All right, we're going to do the same thing we did here on this wrist and thumb. So work in like half and half, or maybe you feel more comfortable doing like thirds. Any colors. We're just going to do the same colors again. Whoa. Ding dong. Ding dong. My kid is going out. Going out with her little friend. All right, there's some blue. Kind of did different order, because first I was doing pink first because it was a light color. Well, we'll mix it up. We'll see what happens. Blue, and then pink. You can use completely different colors on this one. Maybe this one's pinks and purples. Maybe this one's blues and greens. Purple. And you can use this galaxy effect on, other things. If you want to do a painting in the future where the whole background is galaxy, I would still do it in little sections at a time, just so you are working in wet areas that haven't already started to like dry. If you attempted to do the whole huge background, some areas would get dry before you're able to add salt or add black into it, let's say. Let me get some water. Remember to add like little bits of water here and there, just plain water. That way you get some lighter areas, colors swirling into each other. If any color is like a little bit lighter, like it starts to spread out too much, just go back in there, darken it up again. There's some more blue. Starting to get a little light. And I always do black last because it's just so overpowering. Tidy up my wrists, my wiggly, squiggly wrists. What else? Maybe a little more pink. Interesting. And black. Yep, that looks good for now. I'll saltify it. So with the salt, we have to wait till it is dry, fully dry, before you flick off the salt. I usually bring my painting like over the sink, and then I just kind of lightly flake it off with my fingers. If you have like very, very sweaty fingers, you could take like a clean tissue and lightly brush off the salt over the sink or garbage, because you wouldn't want because I have kind of sweaty fingers. Sometimes I smudge it accidentally and I'm like, oh no. But when it's fully dry, so might not even be during this session, it might be after lunch, let this fully dry, then flake off the salt after lunch kind of thing. Puddle, big puddles. Okay, my wrist is good. I'm gonna move up to my palm and my thumb. Let's go with, try a different blue. Let's see. This one, I'm gonna try this different blue. Why not? Mix it up a little. It's like kind of, it's got a little bit of a greeny blue. Purple. I wonder if anyone on this Zoom is brand new to watercolor. I'm probably gonna guess not. But if you are brand new, let me know. Like the camp kids, you guys definitely did some watercolor earlier this week, so you're not brand new. But we do have a wonderful Facebook group on, so it's by Artist Palette Durham Region. On Facebook, it's called Watercolor Lovers. I'm sure maybe a couple of us might be already members of this Facebook group. And it's lots of fun. So every Wednesday, I post a free painting video, so a tutorial for free. It's like a 10 to 20 minute video with a free painting or free exercise for you to try. So if you want to join our little group, it's on Facebook, Watercolor Lovers by Artist Palette Durham Region. Lots of fun, very supportive group. Lots of free paintings to try. And when we're done doing this painting today, I'll show you some upcoming events with me. Some free ones are coming up in August. Acrylics. So I'll show you some examples of those. Okay, here's my palm and my thumb. I went a little heavier on the purple in this case. I want to do some black. Yeah, all these sections end up looking a little bit different. And that's good. I'm sure there's no two spots in the galaxy, in the great wide universe, that are exactly the same. My earth, my ocean is nice and dry now. Nice and dry in there, that's good. Okay, there's some black, time to saltify it. Yeah, there's a little bit of salt kind of everywhere, but you can just kind of blow off any salt that's not like attached to wet paint. It'll just blow right away. It's gone. When we add the green, it's going to really pop against all these dark colors. The green just looks so alive. I've got some really interesting effects. Now, these effects of the salt don't always work for me. They won't always work for you. It's kind of based on the brand of paint, the amount of water, even like the weather of the day, like the humidity in the air. So today it's working pretty good. I think it's working better here than it was when I did the original one. Some crazy, interesting stuff is happening. Wonderful. Now this area is dry enough for me to keep going on these fingers here. If your thumb on this side is still super wet or like mostly wet, you can leave a little white gap. So like between these fingers, I've purposefully left the white gap. You could also leave the white gap right along that thumb. So this purpley finger doesn't bleed into your wet thumb kind of thing. But we're going to do the same thing, filling in the fingers that we were doing for the wrist and the thumb. But we're just going to leave white gaps between the fingers so we can have like distinct colors. So this finger could be more pinky, this one's more bluey, without having to wait like ages and ages for each finger to dry. So I'm going to switch to my smaller brush to get in small little areas like this, but all the same colors we've been using. You could add a new color, like I added a different blue here if you want to add a little bit of green, whatever you feel like. Red maybe some red would look cool. Orange. Right in here. I might even just leave a white gap anyway. I'm just going to work on one finger at a time. I've got pink, I've got purple, I've got blue. I will do black. Right up to my pencil line, but I'm not going over my pencil. Add some little bits of water if you want to dab in a little water for lighter areas. Yeah, so there's one finger. Yeah, I've got some pink here, purple here, a little blue here. Black is next. Or not at all. I'm looking at some of my fingers up here. Sometimes I didn't add any black. That's okay. Maybe I'll just add a teeny little bit of black. Yeah, I think that's a good amount. And where's my salt? Tiniest bit of salt on a tiny finger. There, got a little salt on there. Some of my salt went over here. That's okay. So I'll do this finger next, but leaving a little white gap so that all these colors aren't disturbed and start spreading into the second finger. If they do bleed a little bit, if it touches a tiny bit, that's okay. That's all right. Just try to do the little gap as best you can. Bring it up a little closer here. So there's my second finger. You can see where I did have a little bit where that touched the other one, but for the most part, I have a white gap. And I'll add a tiny, tiny couple grains of salt. And a cat hair. Well, that's a bonus. Maxie, looking at me. Maxie. Max is still having a nap in the window. Okay, yeah, just keep marching along. Do each little finger, even like the teeny little, like a tiny bit of a pinky showing. Make it its own little shape. This is a teeny little shape in here. Little tiny shape. Little tiny pinky, but your fingers might be arranged a little different than my fingers. Tiny, tiny salt. 5 grains of salt on that one. Just noticed a big puddle over here. If you have any massive puddles, you can just lightly soak it up. That'll help. Okay, I'm going to move to my, I guess that's my ring finger. Blue. I haven't used black in a while, so I'll throw in a little black. Getting there. Maybe like, I want to try like an all blue finger. So I'll do 2 colors of blue in one finger, just to see what that would be like. Kind of cute. Salt. And just kind of get in the zone and kind of just blot out any other thoughts in your head and just focus on the colors and the method. That's kind of what's great about people picking up art as a hobby in the pandemic. Like a little escape. That's cute. I'm going to add some black. That's looking really good. A little salt. There we go. Yeah, so we've got some very dry areas. We have some very wet areas. But so far, it's looking really nifty. Yeah, I think the white lines really help, show the shape of what's going on. If we didn't have those lines there, people would be like, what is this blob around the earth? They wouldn't get it, but I think the white lines help that separation. So I'll give you some more time on your last fingers here. We'll probably do the background in a few minutes. I'm just getting rid of like extra little bits of salt. I have a couple like splashes that got away from me here and there. That'll be okay. When I add the blue background, it'll kind of fade those out. Or it could be like a thing that I want intentionally, like I could do the blue background and then purposefully add some splats and drips as an effect, as a conscious choice. I do like adding splats and drips to my paintings. I can't wait to see if you guys chose like different colors than me and how that looks. Yeah, it's really interesting how things move around, how things don't move around. There's some really dark patches. We're doing pretty good for time because really we just need to do the background and the continents, and then maybe you guys can do a little show and tell of what you got today and maybe some of the stuff you made earlier this week. I'd love to see some of those too. And then we won't have camp tomorrow. It's just a 4-day Monday to Thursday camp. But you could do more art tomorrow morning, keeping with the theme. You could make your own space themed art tomorrow morning, and we would love to see that too. So in the email I sent out yesterday with the solar system recording, I also put a link in there to a Facebook page where you can share some of your art. We'd love to see that. So like in Artist Palette, Durham Region, in the events, past events, this camp, you can find people posting some of their work, which is lovely to see all the different variations. I love seeing the different colors, the different styles that people have, because we all have a different style. We love to see that. But I will again put that link in today's email. So we can maybe share this one and the rest of the week. Okay.
I wore this shirt specifically because it's like kind of looks like a galaxy.
Oh yeah. That's cute, Peyton. Yeah, I didn't match my outfit to my painting today. Sometimes I do, like if I'm painting sunflowers, I'll wear like yellow just because I'm feeling in a sunflowery mood. But yeah, that's a good idea to match your outfit to the painting you're going to do. I'm sure some people do that, maybe subconsciously. Okay, if you're still finishing up a few fingers, finish those up. And we'll just talk about what we're going to do in the background. Look at all those great, like, this is what we call cauliflowers, these blooms, these patches that form. And this was me just adding more water after I'd painted. And I'm not going to paint the whole thing blue and then do the water. We have to do it kind of in stages again, so it doesn't dry up on us. So maybe I'll start with this bottom section as like a controlled area. So we'll paint this blue, but then we'll purposely add blobs and drips and dabs of more water. And then as it dries, it will reveal whatever it's going to reveal. So sometimes it'll be really distinct. Sometimes it'll be a little more subtle. Everyone's going to have different effects. And you could do more than one color. If you want to have pinks and purples and blues swirled, black with green, whatever you want to do. Yeah, green would kind of complement the continents. Yeah, so why don't we start in this area? It's kind of like a smaller controlled area, and then we'll kind of work our way around. I'm going to use sort of my biggish, medium-ish brush because it holds lots of painty water. Pick a blue, any color blue, or just any color at all. Okay, what blue do I want? This one. Lots of water. Yeah, that's kind of a nice blue. Yeah, I mean, let's say you don't like the blue that you picked. You put some blue down. You're like, oh, I don't like that color. Get a tissue. Dab it right up. Put on a different color blue. Let me see this one. This one's slightly different. Ooh, I kind of like this one. That's a good one. A little bit brighter than that last one. Yeah, I'm gonna go with this blue. So you can, if your wrists and hands are dry, you can go right up to it, or you can purposefully leave that little white gap that we left between some of our fingers there. Your choice, white gap or no white gap. And there's like a couple grains of salt that got mixed in there. That's all right. All right, so that's my blue. You know, some areas might look a little darker, a little lighter. That's fine. If a little salt is mixed in there, that's okay too. And then just add little blobs and dabs of water. So rinse off your brush, and then I kind of wipe it to the side just so it's not like dripping wet. And then I dab it here and there. There goes that phone again. There goes that phone again. It'll go to the answering machine. I'm a weird one. I've got a landline still. Not many people can say they have a landline still. Okay, dab, 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 dab. Yeah, we'll see like what that does as it dries. It could look like this. It could look completely different. If you want to dab other colors in there too and see what that does. Anything you want to do. Okay, so I'm probably gonna move to this side because this hand is kind of more dry. And I'll work in kind of like smaller areas. So again, if you want to have your paint right up against your hand or have a little gap, a little white gap is fine. I'll probably go to about there so that this doesn't start drying out too much. Okay, and then I'll get some water, dab it around. See what will happen. Good. Sometimes I like to turn. I'll turn it completely around, upside down, just so it's more comfortable for my hand. So instead of me reaching over wet areas, potentially smudging things, just rotate the whole thing. Just rotate it. Because you kind of want the area you're working on to be close to you. It just makes sense. Yeah, there's little bits of salt that got loose. That might even do something cool in your background. Can't wait to see what. Oh, that's a big puddle. Maybe I'll scoop some of that up. That's a big puddle too. Yeah, so all watercolor paper will kind of wiggle and warp and bend, especially because we're painting big, huge areas with a lot of water. So mine's kind of bumping up. This is kind of a big bump here. This is kind of like a little valley. That's why it's kind of pooling here. Bump. Even the best quality watercolor paper will have a little bit of wiggly warpiness to it, but it flattens out a lot as it dries. And if you want to really help it along with flattening out, put some books on it, something heavy, but when it's dry, not when it's wet. Okay, here's some water. Even if I just like flick some water, something interesting might happen. Da, da, da. See what that does. Going all the way. Yeah, I think I'll just finish off the last bit all at once here. It's okay if you're further behind than I am. I have had loads of practice. So my hands naturally can kind of paint a little faster, but that's all it takes. Practice, practice, practice. Let's get some water. Kind of liked kind of flicking. That's kind of fun. And some dabs. Ooh. Something interesting happening there. Kind of weak over here, but this is interesting. It's hard to replicate things exactly the same with watercolor because it has its own mind. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, you can dab a little more extra water in places maybe that aren't doing as much, like over here. Maybe I'll add a little more water. See if that does anything. Yeah. Even in some of the slightly dry areas, if you can try adding a little more water, see what it does. Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm really impressed with this one. That's a good cauliflower. I like that. I have a bit of a puddle situation. But on the whole, I'm liking what's kind of going on. But at some point, you just have to stop playing around with it and let it dry. Okay, that's good. That's good. There's a little salt on my continents. Again, not a big deal if a little salty stuff happens in the continents. I even have a couple salt frosty areas in my ocean because probably this little patch was a tiny bit wet when a few of these grains went over here. Maybe that's like storms. Maybe some storm clouds are starting to brew down here by Africa. Africa would be down here. So a couple more steps. We're going to do the greeny yellow, and we'll do some white stars with our something opaque. So acrylic is opaque, white ink, whiteout pen, ooh, gouache. So gouache is kind of like a cross between watercolor and acrylic. Gouache would be a little more opaque than white watercolor. White watercolor is super see-through, so we're not going to use that. I'll give you a Couple more seconds filling in your background. Fill that background in. And we'll go ahead with our continents. We've got kind of like an emerald green, some yellow, maybe even a little sap green. But let's say you only have like one shade of green, one shade of yellow, but you can also mix the two together to make like a lemon lime kind of color. And I didn't really like plan on certain colors in certain areas, but you know, if you want to emphasize, like if you have more of Africa showing and you want to make that more yellowish because it's drier deserts, and you want to make, you know, Canada darker green because maybe we have more trees kind of thing, you could definitely do that. But I just kind of put it just willy-nilly, greens and yellows wherever I felt like it. So that's what that one looks like. This is going to turn out completely different because of how the colors will bleed and dry. It won't look exactly like that. That's just how watercolor works. Okay, so if you're still filling in your background, just keep plugging away at that, and then just join us right away with the continents, greens and yellows. I'm gonna start with yellow because that's lighter. I'm gonna use my smaller brush because it's little tiny areas. If we're working near anything that's wet, like a wet finger here, wet finger there, again, just don't let them touch, have a little white gap. So as I'm going along this edge here, I'll probably leave a little white gap, and that'll help distinguish between the earth and the hands too. A white gap. So I'm going to get some yellow going. Any kind of yellow. I'm using lemon yellow. And just dabble some wherever you want. It doesn't have to be where I'm going to put my yellow. Little dabs there. Maybe Florida has a little yellow on it. Wherever. Again, not letting wet colors touch wet. If this yellow and this purpley black touched each other and blended, it would make a gross, muddy brown color. And that's no good. Let's say a bleed does happen accidentally. Just grab a clean area of your tissue or paper towel and blot it, soak it up, and then you can repaint those areas. But try not to let them touch again because then you got to blot it up again. Okay, so there's some yellow, here and there. No real rhyme or reason. I'm gonna get some sap green, it's kind of a medium color green. Blob some of this around. You can let them touch with the yellow. Let the yellow and the green mix, making a new color. And then I'll add like a darker green, like an emerald green as well, if you have another shade of green. Green plus some blue would also make you a lovely, like an emerald color. even if there's like a couple white gaps, that's okay too. Over here in Europe. Go, and I'll add just a little bit of emerald. Which one's that? Here. You could dab in some browns. Browns would look good in there. Maybe some blue. It would probably just end up turning a little bit greenish anyway. Yeah, brown. Maybe if you have like Australia on there, maybe like a light brown for like the outback area of Australia. I've got all kinds of different things bleeding into each other. It's going to make some interesting cauliflowers as it dries. Yeah, that's not bad. Nice and bright. Nice and bright. Lots of yellow and that lighter green and less of the darker green. Keeps it nice and light. Yeah, this is looking interesting. My background is almost dry. Let's see. So I'm gonna find an even smaller paintbrush. When I dot the stars, I'm gonna use the butt of the paintbrush. We did that a little bit yesterday too with our solar system. A small paintbrush butt. So this one's pretty big. I want to find a smaller one. What do I got? Oh, this one's small. We'll try this one. You don't need a lot of white paint. I just take the lid off of my acrylic and I'll just use a little bit of white paint that's like stuck in the lid. That's all I need. So I'll probably just dot some white dots to show you on the dry parts of my galaxy hands. I'll probably wait till this is dry after lunch to dot a last few stars there.
You did the background like how you did the blue of the earth, right?
I
Like
did.
dry and then adding the water.
Yeah, just wet paint on dry paper and then dribbling little bits of water here and there. Exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So little stars, you can make certain constellations if you want. You can put like a hidden image in the stars that you make, or hidden initials. And I've got a variety of sizes. So the first little dab that I make is usually the biggest dot. And then as you dot a few more times with the same like paint load, they get smaller and smaller until you can't like dot anymore, and then you got to reload. Reload. So I like doing my dots like kind of in the darkest areas. Makes them stand out a lot. Nice dark area of your galaxy. That's still pretty wet there. Big ones, little ones. If you wanted to add like a shooting star, you could. Maybe even like yellow stars. Get some yellow paint, do some yellow dots if you wanted to. Other colors, I guess you could dot like one red dot as like Mars as an idea. And then something else you could do with the white opaque acrylic paint or whatnot, when this earth is dry and you want to add some like swirling clouds, maybe like a hurricane forming above the ocean, you could definitely do that. Have some white swirls using, I would use the brush and do some clouds, or you could just leave the earth as it is, nice clear day. Does that really happen though, where the whole earth is like clear and not cloudy? Probably not. Let's see, can I get in here? Super wet still, right in here. So I'm going to leave that part undotted for now. And we'll add my initials, my signature. You could put your whole name. You could put just your initials. Where will I add this? I kind of like to hide it like in the galaxy here. You could put the year. You could put your age. Like I love when kids put, age 9 on their paintings. Love that. I'm not going to put my age on there. I'm not going to acknowledge that. So I'll just put mine at the bottom corner, and I will do my tape pull. If you have tape around yours and your background is still wet, don't pull the tape off till it's dry. I'm going to just slowly, carefully get a nice, clean, crisp border here. Yeah, go slowly so that it doesn't rip as much. Like sometimes tape is a little stickier and starts to rip the paper a little bit. Just go slow. Ooh, that looks good. There we go. Love pulling the tape. It makes it look so finished and refined. Okay, so that'll be the end of the recording. And I'll send out that recording this afternoon.